Good, Ja. You already know what it is, baby. This is T Paris, aka the Young Marvin Gaye. This rap shit, most original, most creative, most in tune with the times, and I'm sort of like your inspiration. And this is P's perspective. But let's not waste no time. Let's get right into it. Now, like we always do at this time, I'm gonna ask that you please hit that like button. I want to ask that you please hit the subscribe and the comments. Y'all know how we greatly appreciate those. Just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate everybody who's been tuning in, everybody who's been engaging. Now, this week our topic of discussion is betrayal and trauma. I know y'all wonder how we came up with that. First, I want to give a shout out to Nas, man. Y'all know I love hip hop. You know, I love rap. Nas is one of my favorite artists of all time. You know, shout out to Nas. Just dropped a new album called King's Disease. Album is fire. You know what I'm saying? Very mature. You know, very lyrical. A lot of impactful songs on there, man. One song that stand out to me, you know, specifically though, is that little intro, King's Disease, Car 85, 10 Points, Full Circle with the Firm. You know, he got some fire on there, man. Till the war's won. I think that's heat. But this album right here, you know, and listening to it, I stumbled upon something that Nas said, and I thought it would be good to address that topic. Mainly because I think when we pay attention to entertainers and, you know, celebrities, so to speak, when they say something, I kind of feel like we hang on to it like it's the law. So I want to share what Nas said and why it resonated with me. So on the song 10 Points, Nas goes on to say, stop holding on to past childhood trauma. It defeats us. Now, I think that was a powerful statement. You know, throughout the song, he's talking about how we as people of color, specifically men, kings in this situation, how we can go on to grow and leave certain things in our past, you know, move on from certain ideologies, certain thoughts, and certain feelings. And I definitely agree with that. I thought that was dope. But I just kind of feel like when you talk about trauma, you talk about betrayal, I think it goes a little bit deeper than just the song lyrics. So what we want to do is talk about, you know, a couple different examples. You know, of course, get into a little, you know, engagement where I share what I think. And then the heart to heart, man, got a couple questions and just hope that, you know, you enjoy what we did this week. So let's start off with betrayal. You know, what is betrayal? So according to the dictionary, you know, betrayal is to violate one's trust or one's confidence, right? So as it pertains to what we talking about, a relationship where you know, put some faith, trust, your confidence in somebody and they kind of let you down, you know, in a traumatic way, you know, that's a form of betrayal. And oftentimes from betrayal, you know, comes the feelings of trauma. Now, trauma is basically, you know, the feelings that derive, you know, from these forms of betrayal or disconnect, you know, from other people. And trauma can actually be broken down into different forms, right? So first we got acute trauma, which comes from a specific incident. So you're dealing with something that may have happened to you and it took its toll on you, you know, one time. That's what we would deem as acute trauma. Chronic trauma will be dealing with something, you know, consistently. So for example, domestic violence, you know, going to counseling for sex abuse. Somebody went to war and they, you know, going to counseling for that. So it's like reliving that trauma over and over and over again as you're going through the counseling sessions, having, you know, relive those moments. And then you got complex traumas, which are multiple traumatic experiences that happen within relationships. And you continue to bump into these situations over and over again. So in some ways, you don't really get a chance to heal from the betrayal, which has caused, you know, the trauma. So just to get a little bit more in depth in the conversation, right? I want to focus on Kanye, right? So, missing a parent, growing up in this world, your parents, your first teachers. A lot of us grew up in either single parent homes or grew up in extended families. And so sometimes when not having that parent there, I don't think that we really focus on the magnitude of, development of a child. Because a lot of times, we look at people's levels of success and say, my mom raised me, or, my grandmom raised me. And because they, quote unquote, made it to a level, which they deem successful, we feel like, oh, they had a good life, or, they overcome, the struggles. So I picked out Kanye because I don't know, about Kanye pops. I'm not, too vast on that information. I do know his mom was somebody that was very instrumental in his life, right? And his mom was a teacher. He was into producing music and things of that nature. And as you listen to some of his music, I remember a lyric he said, imagine locking yourself in a room for 6 summers, just producing beats, trying to reach his level of success. And then when Kanye's mom, passed away, it was right after that we start seeing Kanye spiral out of control. Now, he got with, a Kardashian. And, I'm assuming he was looking for, some type of maternal love, some type of affection. And I don't know. He said, somewhere along the lines that he felt like they was trying to poison him or kill him or whatever. They put out some negative information on him and things of that nature. And so I point that out to say, without, speaking about his dad, when he lost his mom, you see the effect of somebody who's been in his life for a long time. Now, he's somebody who's very, sensitive and very emotional, but he was crying out for help. And as soon as he, found that help, it seemed like he went through even more tumultuous, situations, So that's one form of trauma. And I don't think in any way, shape, or form that anybody would say to him, get over that. All right. The next example I want to use, Cynthia Brown or Centoya Brown, a young lady who was, sexually abused and sex trafficking, right? She was being abused and prostituted, traveling different places, different states, and being used for sex with men. And eventually she got a chance to kill, one of the attackers. And she ended up going to jail for that. Now, it's unfortunate that she was being abused, and then in defending herself, she still, was charged with a crime. Now, I'm pretty sure no matter what we say, what we discuss, ain't no getting over that. You understand what I'm saying? Ain't no getting over that moment. And if she moved forward, if she decides that she don't want to be with no man, she want to be with a woman because, men have left a sour taste in her mouth. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, I don't think that, we as human beings would tell her, get over that. You know what I'm saying? Just move on from it. My next example, we all come from an inner city community, right? And growing up, we always ask that question, does art imitate life or does life imitate art? Well, the movie Paid in Full, is based upon a true story, Rich Porter, AZ, and Alpo, right? And this is an example of friendship, brotherhood, so to speak. And these guys out there, living it up, making money, traveling, doing whatever they want to do, living their life. And for whatever reason, they bump heads, and Rich, died or got killed, got murdered by Alpo. And this took place back in the 80s. And here we are in 2020. And when we talk about, the streets, we still talk about Alpo and Rich Porter. We still talk about snitching. We still talk about your best friend or your man betraying you. And we don't say, just get over it. And so I'm pointing these things out because in each one of these situations, there's a form of trauma and some form of betrayal. Now, like I said, betrayal happens, which leads to us dealing in trauma. But oftentimes I feel like we don't really want to sit down and deal with the pressing issues of the trauma. You know what I'm saying? The healing, the counseling aspect of it. And it's just my opinion. Oftentimes when we talk about this, when we talk about relationships of any sort, I feel like people romanticize them all the time. You always look at a relationship based upon a man and a woman and some type of intimate bond. And relationships don't always got to be like that. They don't always have to be like that. But furthermore, when you dealing in intimacy, and then you feel some form of betrayal and deal with some type of trauma, as you move on, that shit don't just stay in the previous relationships. And oftentimes you hear people say, yo, I'm not the person who did that to you. You're right, you might not be. But you may have done something to trigger the feelings that I felt in that moment. There was another quote, that Nas said, stop trying to squeeze, a circle into a square peg. And so basically, what I took away from that quote is, sometimes things are just the way that they are. No matter how frustrating, it is, or how troublesome it might be, that's just the way that it is. And so if somebody is having a hard time dealing with something, it might be challenging for you to be around them. And that's cool. But I don't think at any point in time do you have the authority to tell them to let it go or just move on. Maybe something that you're doing or something that you're saying is provoking these feelings of trauma inside of this person. Have you ever thought about that? So we give you an example. If you growing up in a community, you know what I'm saying, and you raised around men, and oftentimes, when you deal with situations, it's always, yo, just chill, man. Don't worry about it. Stop crying. Yo, get up, wipe that shit off. It ain't nothing. You a man. Now, as you get older, you have a child, and you got a son, and you see your son going through hard times. 9 times out of 10, you going to instill the same ideology that you had. You don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Get up, wipe that shit off. Stop crying. Don't worry about that. The negative aspect about that is, as men, we don't oftentimes get in tune with our real feelings. Men and women are really no different from each other when it comes to feelings and emotions. We all have them. It's not okay for men to tap into them. It's only okay for women to tap into them. But then the same breath of fresh air, when we adults and we dealing with situations where men don't show no sympathy, you wonder why. It's because oftentimes they haven't learned how to deal with these emotions. Betrayal is an emotion, right? It's an action, but there's an emotion that comes along with it. And that emotion is trauma. Like I said before, there's different levels of trauma. And so we can't expect to get, positive results doing the same thing in every situation. It ain't gonna work like that. And so that's what I mean when I say that, sometimes we can't pay so much attention to what the celebrities and people up here is saying, because when they say it become the law. Let me point something else out to y'all. Right now, this little pandemic, we dealing with something that come up oftentimes is racism, discrimination. We talk about people of color, are we going to vote for Donald Trump again, or we going to go for somebody different? Are we going to let Kamala Harris, get a shot? And oftentimes when we discuss these topics, we fall back on slavery, in that period of time. But I want to point out, none of us was around during that point in time. So it's a narrative that has been passed down upon us. But you don't often hear people say, yo, let it go, stop worrying about that. People don't say that. People always focused on how it has prevented us from, getting a certain place in time in history. People oftentimes point out our shortcomings and say it's based upon this. So, my point is, we can't have it both ways. You know what I'm saying? If we're going to act like traumas and betrayal don't exist, then by all means, be like, yo, just get over it. You know what I'm saying? Let that shit go. It ain't nothing. However, if we're going to focus on things like slavery, which is also a form of trauma, then I think it's impossible to tell somebody else that they trauma don't mean nothing. Because slavery affected all of us doesn't make it more important. That young lady that's being sexually abused, she deserves some type of counseling, some type of healing, some type of support. You know what I'm saying? That young man had been manipulated into joining the gang and then got caught up because somebody told on him. Now he's doing a shitload of time. He deserves some type of sympathy for that betrayal. You know what I'm saying? The trauma that he gonna deal with by being locked inside that cage. You know, why is it so easy to just be like, man, let that go. You shouldn't have did what you did. The reality is a lot of us are just learning based upon what we see. You know what I'm saying? And that's why it's so difficult to get past the traumas. As people of color, we oftentimes don't talk about things like going to counseling. You know what I'm saying? Seeking out therapy. You know what I'm saying? I think it's highly publicized to get over it. But it's not highly publicized to go seek therapy, man. Go seek counseling. You know, focus on healing. Allowing, you know what I'm saying, yourself some time to grow past those moments. And when I say grow past the moments, I don't mean just leaving them, letting them go. But when these specific feelings come about, it's about tapping in, you know, asking questions, trying to understand, and not pushing away from it, embracing it, and understanding that it's a part of your journey, it's a part of life. You know, the reality of it is this, you know, some pains that we have, they shape our lives, and they don't necessarily have to be, you know, the definition of your entire life. It could be for one moment in time, but it's something that has happened in your life. And in some ways, it plays a part on how you think, how you walk, how you talk, how you move, you know? But I don't think that we should be so quick to write people off because of these shortcomings. Oftentimes, I like to believe that's what makes you so beautiful. These are some of your flaws. These are some of the reasons why you can be empathetic to other people, because you too experience some form of hurt, you know, some form of betrayal. I think when people say, you know, get over it, oftentimes it's because it don't appeal to them in the moment. You know, so for example, like I said, people romanticize things a lot. You might want to be in a relationship with this person, and so you telling them, yo, come on, stop comparing me to your ex. Stop thinking that everything that they did to you, that I'm going to do the same thing. When in reality, you might just remind them of that same person, the way you talk, you know what I'm saying, the way you omit their feelings, the way you just speed over things that are offensive to them. That might be the same thing that their ex did. And you might mean well and not even know that you're doing these things. But it's not until they let you know that makes them feel uncomfortable that you start with, oh, let that shit go, don't worry about it, it ain't nothing. Well, if it ain't nothing, then why you can't change it? Why you can't work on changing that part of your personality? You know why? Because it don't appeal to you. You working on yourself don't appeal to you. Only pointing fingers and telling other people they can improve appeals to you. We got to work on that, man. We got to fix that. And so what I'm challenging all of us to do is start to normalize therapy. Start to normalize counseling. Start to normalize healing. You know, let's start to take time and ask the questions about your previous relationships, your previous bonds. You know, some of the things that hurt, some of the things that made you feel like you don't know if you want to continue to go on. So we don't have to stumble upon these feelings again. I thought this was a dope topic, man. A dope topic. I'm going to ask y'all some questions. My first question is, why do we feel like some traumas are more important than others? Trauma is trauma. And we see that there are different levels of trauma. So my first question is, why do we feel some traumas are more important than others? Question 2, how would you feel if you poured your heart out to somebody about something that you experienced and they told you get over it? And question number 3, what are your thoughts about counseling and therapy? This is T. Paris, man. I hope y'all enjoyed this topic right here, man. It's just something that I'm very, very passionate about. Mental health, man. Our mental health is very important. If you see this video, I hope that you don't just watch it, you engage, but you also pass it on to somebody else, man, because I think this is one of those things that we overlook time and time again. This is T. Paris, y'all. Young Marvin Gaye, this rap shit, most original, most creative, most in tune with the times, and I'm sort of like your inspiration. Toast to the town. And before I forget, happy birthday, Kobe Bryant. I love you, boy. Peace.